joining us, then we'll do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So hello, Hypno friend. Start with singular and go plural because there's one of you here now, but more hopefully to come. And then also watching on YouTube. Tonight's guest is someone I had the pleasure of chatting with when I was a guest myself on his podcast, Hypnosis Hero. And I feel like we instantly hit it off. You and I and Jim, I'm not sure what Brian thinks about me, but that's okay. We'll save that for another day.
I think anyway. Brian likes it. I think you're safe.
Okay, good. But yeah, we hit it off over like a shared love of hypnosis, obviously, deep dives into the whole power of suggestion. But also turns out we're both sci-fi geeks. So we had that. So Shawn is a certified hypnotist, podcast co-host, comedy stage hypnosis performer, and all around transformation catalyst. So helping clients shift long-held beliefs in private sessions, entertaining audiences with hilarious hypnosis shows, and leading live guided trance work on his podcast. And what I wrote here, this is my own words, Shawn brings warmth, insight, and a disarming sense of humor to everything he does, which is just absolutely how I perceive you. You're just one of those humans who makes people feel instantly at ease. And I could see why you would be good at what you do. You strike me as kind and curious and just very authentic, which I always appreciate in a human. So please help me welcome one of my favorite fellow hypnosis nerds, Shawn Kostiuk. Yay! Claps, applause all around. Okay. So
the Kermit the Frog. Yay!
This next one, yeah, there you go.
Hi, home, Kermit the Frog here.
I have a Kermit the Frog voice too. I'm not going to do it though. I haven't done it since I was a kid. I'd have to practice, but I used to, and Miss Piggy. So before we jump in, for the people who aren't watching live, which is everyone except for the three of us right now, I am Krista Marie Bowman, if you don't know me yet, and I started the Hypnotherapy Uncensored group back in 2020 as a direct result of being censored. I was actually kicked out of another hypnosis forum for, believe it or not, asking questions. Yep. Asking questions about different methods, different techniques, different protocols, bringing up, other trainers' names, which the person who had this particular group was not happy about. She was like, no other hypnosis exists besides what I teach, was kind of her attitude. So when I finally got kicked out for the last and final time, I was like, well, I would like to create a safe space where I can be my uncensored self, but also where I can bring together access to more tools, more teachers, more transparency, less ego. And so I created Hypnotherapy Uncensored. So that's kind of the, there's somebody else coming in. Yay. That's kind of the background for it. And then, so that was in 2020. Then in 2021, I started doing these spotlight interviews because I don't even know how it happened, but the group itself filled up with all of these fantastic trainers. And I just wanted to capture their insights somewhere for everybody. Because as we know, there's no one size fits all. So just because somebody's learning my methods doesn't mean that they're not also going to find value in something else that somebody else says, right? And so I just wanted to create this place where no question is off limits, curiosity is encouraged, and there's no room for censorship. And so me being the little rebel that I am created this thing, which is now all of this. And there's literally hundreds of hours of free hypnosis training available on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will pop the link over into the chat bar in here in just a moment. But getting back to Shawn, let's see. So there's Hypnosis Heroes. I didn't do it.
Nobody said you can't prove anything.
It's going to be one of those kinds of interviews, Lynn. Can you tell? We'll just be riffing off of each other. He starts, let's see, Hypnosis Heroes, Hypno News, Performing Hypnosis Summit. Those are the three things on the docket. But let's start with Hypnosis Heroes. How did you get started with being a producer on this podcast?
So that was Jim's fault.
Okay, Jim Kellner is who he's referring to.
So for those of you that know Jim, he wasn't the most technologically adept kind of a guy. and they kept running into all kinds of problems between him and Brian trying to get things as simple as websites on the screen and whatnot. And I said, you know what, guys, I can do that. You guys keep running the interview, and we'll just keep doing that. And then
Everybody needs to have a friendly neighborhood geek.
well,
Everybody.
you talked about my bedside manner. That comes from the IT world because nobody loves when the IT guy says, I don't know, or just totally freaks out and says we're all going to die. Like that just doesn't work in the IT world.
Right, right, right.
Especially if you're the manager, which I was, you are the guy who has the answer to everything. And so you take that ability to keep people calm and keep working the situation until a solution presents itself. Very much what we all do as hypnotists, right? It's keep working the situation until the solution presents itself because we all know
Absolutely.
when our clients come to us, the problem that they present is not the problem. It never is. There's
Right.
something, it's a symptom of something else.
Not to say that they aren't absolutely convinced that they know what it is sometimes. And those are, I find
Exactly.
sometimes the hardest ones to work with because they have created this whole narrative. They're very invested in it,
Yeah.
very attached to it. They've spent decades digging this trench of their personality. And
Yeah.
then they kind of get a
I,
little bit, I
I,
think,
I
insulted
think
when
of
you
it like
try and
Jenga
take that
blocks.
away.
They've got all these Jenga blocks that they've built up. But if you can find that one,
Yeah.
not
Yes.
not not to keep the tower there, but if you can find that one that will actually topple that whole tower, uh, you solve a whole bunch of problems at the same time.
Yep. I use the metaphor of dominoes, but Jenga works even better. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you
It's
can
messy,
find
but it
that one that
works.
just, yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And a lot of those problems are dovetailed together. So, once you do find that sort of like that key issue.
That's because of the narrative. That's the thread that they've used to weave things together, right?
Oh, another
Because
great metaphor.
they could be completely separate issues, but they get woven into the narrative, right? They get woven, you know, let's geek out. Remember Tapestry from Star Trek: The Next Generation,
Yep.
right? What did Captain Picard say at the end? I'm not proud of all the untidy bits in my life, but when I pulled on the thread of when the tapestry of my life unwound.
Mm, I don't recall that, but
That
now
is
I'm inspired to
approximate.
go
That's
back and
not
watch it
that may
again.
not be exact. I'd have to go
Yeah.
put my uniform on to get the exact one, but
The uniform helps you to remember the quote.
oh yes,
Yeah. Yes.
along
So,
with the
hey,
tea Earl Grey hot.
that actually is a question that I have listed in my like possible interview questions. I'm just going to ask it because you brought it up. But if you could hypnotize any character from TNG, because that's the one that's near and dear to my heart, who would it be? And what do you think you'd be helping them with?
Oh gosh,
And please don't say counselor cleavage, please. I mean, Troy, sorry.
never heard that one. Uh, no, actually, I think it would actually be Dr. Crusher
Oh, she's fascinating. Yeah. Okay. So
because
what do you think you'd be helping her with?
um, the ability to let go of control of certain situations.
I don't know. She's a doctor. Do they do that? Do they come in that flavor? I don't know if
Well,
they do.
doctor and a redhead could be, throw caution to the wind.
Okay. I know you can't tell, but I'm actually a redhead too.
I know.
It's just that it's faded so much. It looks blonde. It's kind of
Mine,
gray. But
mine too.
anyway,
It just faded out of existence.
yeah, I can see the one red hair. There it is. You're hanging on to that one. So yeah, I think that let's see, I would probably I would have to say Picard, but if we took him out of the picture, because I think most any of us would want to hypnotize him. Um, oh, oh, the security officer. What's her name? The blonde. Oh my gosh.
Tasha Yar.
Yes, Tasha Yar. Yeah, I think she would be the one that I would want to hypnotize.
Well, she
Yeah.
would certainly have her backstory for those of you that don't know was that she was born on a planet that was basically she was born into slavery of all kinds of natures, and escaped that planet. Her sister didn't. So there's a kind of a tragic backstory there that I'm sure there'd be some traumas to deal with.
Which is how she became sort of the heroic warrior that she did become, but also being a female in a typically male dominated role. Yeah, there's just a lot. There's a very rich tapestry, using that word again, to go along with her character. Okay, so you've interviewed a lot of people through the Hypnosis Heroes podcast. And I would just like to know, has there been a guest or a moment that has really just stuck with you for these years?
Yeah, there are a few.
And not me,
That's not
because I
you.
won't
Okay.
accept that answer.
Okay, the ones that aren't you. Yeah, definitely. So when Brian and Jim decided, yes, we're gonna bring Shawn onto the podcast, the first few podcasts I was behind the scenes, and my goal was to make sure everything technical ran and to keep them in line. Which, if you know
Good
anything about
job.
Jim, keeping Jim in line is I mean that line
It's like
might
a
as well
full-time
be like a
job.
curve, right? Like it just doesn't work with Jim. And then you throw Brian into the mix, and Brian is very much like a squirrel sometimes when it comes to attention span and thoughts. And so he'll have one thought and then he'll jump to something completely different. And oftentimes, earlier in those days, we would lose some of the transition between questions that probably would have made things more logical. And so one of the very first ones was, of course, Wendy Friesen came on the podcast. And so much for me keeping them in line. Like typically we end off about 2 hours, which is, that's for a podcast, that's a lot. Like you could literally chop that up into, a bunch of half hour, 40-minute segments or something along that line and come out on the other side. But we went almost 4 hours that night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, Wendy just
Wow.
her appeal, of course, of she's got a wide array of things that she used to deal with, and some of them were of an adult nature, and so the jokes just kept going, and Brian kept bringing up that, well, what about this? And then Jim would get involved, and it's like, guys, we're at 3 hours already. I'm
And
texting
you're the one
behind the
who's supposed
scenes.
to be kind of like putting the
Yeah,
parameters on them and
yeah.
keeping them in line.
So
Yeah. Great
after,
job there, Shawn.
yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Way to go. So I said after that, I'm going on screen with you guys so that I can, keep you guys in line and you can actually see me saying, "Whoa, hey, let's go."
Because they were just completely ignoring you.
Oh,
That's
absolutely they
great.
were. Absolutely they
That's
were.
fantastic.
So
Uh,
that one sticks out in my mind because it actually was a really fun interview and Wendy had tons of information and I mean, a huge array of products that were still out there on our website and so on and so forth. One that definitely sticks out
so
for
she
me.
probably needed that, or maybe like two different segments or something.
Oh, yeah, we could have done 3 interviews with the amount of things that she had, but yeah, it was phenomenal.
I'm
So
gonna have to go back and watch that one. I
yeah,
haven't
well,
seen that
yeah,
one.
make
Yeah.
sure you got a big bowl of popcorn and
I'll probably do it when I'm driving. I'm driving to Ocracoke Island in August. And so that would be like a great time to just pop it in and listen because I've got a very long drive ahead of me.
yep. Well,
Yeah.
in that case, you're good to go.
Good, good.
I don't know if we ever got to the hypnosis portion of that one or not, but
Oh, she didn't actually hypnotize
I,
anybody.
I, I, I think she might have, but I'm not sure that if that got cut or what, because you can only find that one. Well, I shouldn't say only. You should be able to find that one on the YouTube channel because I pulled it from Jim's YouTube
I'm
uh,
popping the link into the chat right
site.
now. And
Yep.
of course, when this goes into YouTube, I'll make sure that all these links are available. So if you
Yeah.
guys are wanting to look for the Hypnosis Heroes podcast, then that's where you'll find it. And then you also go live on TikTok,
Oh
right?
yes. Yep.
And I think you used to on Facebook, but then not anymore.
Yeah, no, Facebook has changed their policies, and so we do go live with the podcast and with Hypno News. But of course, YouTube or Facebook now wipes out all the reels after a month. So
Mm, gotcha.
they're not permanent. So the only place really permanent to find things right now is YouTube. So one of the things that we are
Yeah, I found
planning
that
on
too.
doing with the Hypnosis Heroes, and Jim was actually planning on doing it before he passed last year, was to actually get it out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so that we could A, widen the audience, but B,
Did you do that? Is it on Spotify now?
not yet.
Okay.
That's my summer project, is to
Gotcha.
get that ball rolling, because we've got, I don't know, 70-ish episodes now that can go up there. So yeah, it's just
Well,
a
hey,
matter
since
of
you opened the can of worms, uh, and because I think it could be really helpful for people, if you feel comfortable, would you share with us like how you have dealt with the grief of losing your good friend Jim?
Jim. Um,
He was like such a sort of pillar of the hypno community. And can you see my eyes are watering?
yep.
Okay. I'm just going to
Jim
stop
was
talking and let you do it.
yeah, no, no. So I'll tell you how that all panned out. So we actually did Hypnosis Heroes that Monday. It was because that's when we did them.
Which was just like 2 days before
Yeah.
he passed, right?
So
Yeah.
that Monday night, let me make sure I got my timeline straight up here. Uh,
And he was really young. He was like my age. I guess that's not really young. I think of it as really young because it's the age I am, but maybe it's not that young.
well, we're not that old yet. Let's put it that way.
I'm 55. I'm perfectly happy to say it out
Yeah,
loud.
I'm 53, so I'm not that far behind you. Anyway, so yeah, on the 23rd, we did the
Yes,
Hypnosis
I'm.
Hero podcast with Albert Nierenberg. If you've
He's
ever
great.
met Albert, he comes from Quebec, so first of all, that's one of the reasons that he's different. Uh, I'm Canadian, I can say that.
You can say that.
But Albert has a background in broadcast. He used to be actually a news reporter. So a lot of what he produces has that very kind of news-like quality to it. And it draws people in because it's just a little bit of a different take on
Yeah, yeah,
things that
yeah,
we
yeah.
do. So we interviewed
I
him,
actually have a
and
background in radio myself, not broadcasting. I was the Drive at Five gal.
oh
I'll
yeah,
hit 96 the sky. This is Krista coming at you live. On deck, we have Shawn Kostiuk. Take it away, Shawn.
I don't wait for traffic. I have a
I had
star
to
shift.
kill that though in order to do this.
There you go. So anyway, that was good. Jim was sick that Monday and actually left the podcast early,
Hmm.
and really didn't think too much of it. On the
Just like
20,
flu symptoms, though, right? It wasn't anything major.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I suspect it was there were a couple things going on there because Jim normally, when he leaves the podcast, will shut his laptop down and I'll take over and make sure everything gets shut out the way that it should. Jim actually left his laptop on and just kind of quietly exited the room. So I thought, okay, something's up. So I
Hmm.
talked to him on the 24th briefly, and we texted a couple of jokes back and forth on the late on the 24th, and then on the 25th there was a Merry Christmas that went back and forth. I was in Saskatoon with family and drove back to York, which is about 3.5 hours. Christmas Eve, uh, because or Christmas night because I had a son that needed to work the next day. So we saw the that's when we saw the lights. The UFO lights.
Oh, yeah. That's right. We talked about that. Yeah.
We'll talk about
I
that
think
in
I sent you a video of the orbs in my yard.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ours were actual lights.
Geeks
And they
unite.
didn't look like they were FAA approved. So, anyways, 26th about I don't know. Gosh, what time did Brian call? Uh, It was early afternoon. I'm gonna say about 2 o'clock. Brian calls and he says Jim's gone. And I said, "Where?"
Well, yeah, because you guys are always joking. Like it would
Yeah,
never occur to you that,
I got a
yeah,
text from him on Christmas Eve or Christmas night,
yeah.
so, and we didn't get home early. It was about 10:30 by the time we actually made it home that night. And he said, Jim's gone. I said, where? And he said, no, Jim's gone. And you know how you get that quiver in the voice that,
Yeah.
it was like a kick to the gonads and a sucker punch at the same time. And then realization set in that we need to get ahead of this because once the internet breaks this, it's going to be everywhere. And we didn't want Mai and Yang to
Yeah.
have to all of a sudden see on social media all this stuff. So we did the best we could. I phoned as many people as I could
Thank
before
you
that story
for letting
broke,
me
and then
know.
it was actually, I believe, Anthony that was the first one outside of the
Jacqueline.
group to no Anthony Gitch
Oh,
was the
okay.
first one to
I
actually
also
post.
saw Carl Smith say something, and
Yeah,
I was like, well,
yeah,
as soon as he says it, everybody's gonna
yeah,
know now. But I actually
and
sat on it. I sat on it. I didn't. I talked to Amanda Dodd,
yeah,
and that
and
was it.
obviously people started phoning people, and
Yeah,
I can't remember. Was I one that actually told you?
you were. You were the one
Yeah,
who told
okay.
me. Yeah.
Victoria had just performed with Jim the week before, or a couple weeks before.
Hmm.
Jim had a show in Arizona, and Victoria Gallagher came up and
Hmm.
did a little bit of a skit with him, and those are some tough conversations to have. And
And you gave me time too, even though you were just had been sucker punched to the gonads, I think is what you said.
yeah,
You were very gracious, and you gave me the time. Like, you didn't just like, hey, I have bad news for you, and now I got to call a bunch of other people. Like, you actually sat with me for a little bit and like
yeah,
let me kind
and
of
and
process,
and
and
that
I
that would be
appreciate that.
again. That's just who I am, right? Like it's
Ugh, I'm gonna cry.
one thing at a time. That's okay. If you need to grab Kleenex, it's all
I
good.
actually put makeup on, damn it. I'm trying not to lose it. Not much,
Uh,
but there's some. I have eyelashes today, can you tell? Um, Otherwise they're translucent.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, just so, and he was a very active person. I mean, for being in his mid 50s, he
Oh,
was
we
working
we
out. Like,
had
I
plans.
always
We
saw
were
pictures of him at the gym, like,
Yeah,
in his car,
he
not
was
actually at
working
the
out,
gym
he
shows
was
with me.
doing
Yeah.
things. Um, Jim was a
Yeah.
first,
Just
but he was also a connector of people, and I think that's
mhm.
probably the most endearing quality that he had as a guy.
Definitely was a guy
Was
there
that
for
if
sure.
you had something that you were wanting to do, he knew somebody that he could connect you with.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't gone to Hypnothoughts to take his course, uh, at that we might have met at the Performing Hypnosis Summit, later on, but
Which we're
uh,
going to talk about next.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it would have been years before we actually crossed paths, but we met in Jim and I in Scott King's hypnosis hustle group, and Jim actually was one of the guys that started that group with Scott. Scott's pretty much taken it over now.
Hmm.
But um, yeah, it was again, it was a connection, and then it was, hey,
Yeah.
we kind of got the same sense of humor. Hey, we both don't like pineapple pizza. Hey, we,
Who knew that
Jim,
was going to become such a thing? The pineapple on pizza. Oh my gosh. It
it was
like
a
wove
gimmick.
its way through hypno thoughts and through the
It
performing hypnosis, and like it's
It,
everywhere now.
and
It's
even Hypnosis
ubiquitous.
Heroes, the other big memorable episode was the first one. Well, we had Bob on twice, but the first one, where he almost had Jim on the hook to start eating pineapple on pizza again through conversational hypnosis, and
Through conversational
Jim knew exactly what
hypnosis.
was happening, and
Ah,
it was
and he
good.
didn't
And
fall for it.
then of course Bob, being as smooth as Bob is, I call him Bob the Rebuilder. But if
Ah,
you
that's
get a
great. So
chance,
Bob the Builder. Hmm.
yeah, just to give you an idea how smooth Bob is, I had Scott King. This was at Hypnothoughts at the '80s party that you missed because
I
I
was
think you
there.
were sick, weren't you?
I was there. Yeah. No, it was Antonio that was sick, and I was
Ah,
carrying him around on a iPad, and
okay.
he was max headroom inside of the iPad, while I was dressed like I had like a relax. Frankie says relax dress on with fishnets and
Okay,
like
then we
different
yes,
colored
then we definitely crossed
bracelets and
paths there at least once because you would have seen the
yeah.
Starfleet uniform.
Yes,
Uh,
I did. You, yeah, I did see you in it. I
and I
think
had
I have.
Scott.
You're in the background of a picture that I'm in. Like you were like off to the side. We hadn't met yet though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jason and I think had the probably the most notable movie uh, uh, or TV
What was he again?
uniforms. He was Michael J. Fox from Back to the Future.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh
Yeah.
my God. That's perfect for
So
him.
anyway,
That's
long
great.
story short, I had Scott King was talking to a younger hypnotist conversationally. I could tell things were going on, and I had Bob Martin on this side of me
Bob the
doing the
Rebuilder.
play-by-play
Okay.
live. And that's just how
That's great.
smooth Bob is. He knows exactly what's going on. What, yeah, Scott said this, this means this, and it was like a master class in 45 minutes of this
Wow.
conversation. But Bob is so smooth that when we had him on the second time, Brian was the target, so to speak, and didn't even know what was going on by 20 minutes in.
So
So
what did he get Brian to do or not to?
we were talking about some childhood issues and whatnot, and I think eventually Brian came to the realization that his mom was more fun than he probably thought previous to that. And isn't it funny how you thought about fun? Because Bob slipped that in 10 minutes before.
Wow. I'm gonna
So
have to look into him. What
Bob actually has a book out. It's called The Secret Self.
the secret sauce?
And it is a really good
Let me
read,
put
and
that
it
in there.
is definitely all about his journey with conversational hypnosis. Highly recommend it.
And what's his last name again?
Bob Martin is,
Martin. There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely get that.
yeah.
Um,
So anyway, all of that to say, you know, getting out to the conference, meeting Jim, getting to see the people that you interact with, those are all good things. But I never would have connected as strongly with Jim had I not gone to that
mhm.
Hypnothoughts.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. And it's a great backstory, you know, to how you started working together, and because he was the one who networked you into that whole thing. So
Oh
I
yeah,
love that.
yeah. And
Um,
Jim and I actually I think met on TikTok because he was pissed off that I actually had like a video with like 400 and some thousand views. Well, I did that at the very beginning of TikTok when the algorithm was
it
completely
was
different.
fairly easy. Yeah,
Oh yeah, easy to
yeah,
get 400,000 views. Just put a video out and there's 400,000 people that'll watch it because that's all there is to watch, right? So
right. I have a couple that have like hundreds of thousands of views, but they're not me. They're on my TikTok, but like it's me sharing something that Dr. Stephen Greer said, the ones that are me, I think the most I have is like maybe 20,000. But hey, so you're still doing Hypnosis Heroes. And then
yep,
with Brian, did you bring
yep.
a third in, or is it just the two of you
Not no,
now?
we haven't yet.
Hmm.
At some point we wouldn't necessarily ever close the door to that. I think Brian and I as a team now we need to find our footing
Hmm.
a little
Hmm.
bit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah. Because Jim
say
was sort of the glue that held it all together, I imagine.
yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
Jim was definitely the personality that held it all together.
Right. Right. Right.
So there is that as well. But
Well, I mean, obviously, you also have a sparkling personality because you do stage comedy
effervescent.
hypnosis. Yes, effervescence. So tell us a little bit about this Performing Hypnosis Summit. And yeah, just like at some point, I don't know if it's going to be the people that are on the call right now, but somebody's going to watch this and want to learn more about comedy performance hypnosis. So
Yeah. So the
what can you share
performing
with us?
hypnosis summit, and I should actually get you a link for that.
Yeah.
Um, Started by Jim Kellner and Grant Saunders.
I think
And
I
they recognized right off the bat um, there is going to be a big tech component, and we already know how Jim is with tech. Grant's a lot better. Uh, Grant and I can actually relate and talk about different things, but um, the the best way I can describe it was the very first one. that we did, there was still COVID, so we didn't have an in-person
Mm.
conference. It was all online. So we literally created a whole Zoom environment for the conference in the week before the conference.
Oh, wow.
But
It's a
I
lot of
think
work.
the crowning moment, and you know how you want to have a little bit of proof of concept that this thing can actually fly. The crowning moment for the Performing Hypnosis Summit came when we had kind of a roundtable discussion led by Paul. But on that panel was Anthony Gailey. Um, oh gosh, I gotta make sure I don't forget anybody. Marshall Silver was there. Uh, um, Superman. I'm drawing a blank. I just saw him yesterday in the Aisha meeting.
Your memory is already better than mine, so I can't help you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, some of the big names that would have, would be a huge draw in that one moment. And what happened was before Paul could even start asking questions, they started interacting amongst themselves. Hey, do you remember when we went for lunch? And hey, do you remember? And it was this human moment that just absolutely encapsulated, yes, we need to have this conference. Yes, we need to
Mm.
have this summit because we're looking at the the godfathers of hypnosis basically, and the guys that have been there before us and
Of
have kind
performing
of,
hypnosis?
yeah, have
Yeah.
paved the
Okay.
way in this area. And all of a sudden they're talking about, hey, when we remember when we were both flying to wherever and we crossed paths in Chicago and had lunch at touching it, like all these memories just started coming up.
Mm.
And then of course learning more about their individual stories and how they got started, and you look at a guy like Tom Silver who has Orman McGill as a mentor, and you start throwing around names like that, and these are the guys that really did a whole bunch of study in the field of hypnosis. And you realize, wait a minute, they didn't just start out like this. Like, they built everything that they did, and it was kind of one step at a time, one show at a time. And yeah, it was just, that was the proof of concept at the Performing
Do you think
Hypnosis
it was
Summit.
easier back then to make a name for yourself as a performing stage
They would be
hypnotist?
the first ones to tell you that pre-COVID, things were rocking. There
Mm-hmm.
was an abundance of work. There was lots of people going out to, shows and entertaining. Um, there was lots of money around too. There was enough disposable income that people were, if they wanted
Yeah.
to shell out a couple $100 to take four people to a show, wasn't a big deal.
And it was
Uh,
kind of a big thing in like the 80s and 90s just to do like at high schools or like for graduation ceremonies or, things like that. And it seems like that's kind of dropped off. Like my kids, I have 4 kids, they're all grown. Not a single one of them has ever seen a comedy hypnosis show. And I was blown away by that, except for at the county fair, which is where you find them now, right?
right.
Yeah.
And so even for myself, just starting out in the business and getting started, well, it's great that I've got the Performing Hypnosis Summit, and Jim, of course, was my mentor through a lot of that. So we started that one. That one was completely online. The next year, which was 2 years ago now, was a hybrid conference. So we ran online rooms. We had two in-person rooms and two online rooms.
Hmm.
And so guess who ran the tech for,
Of course, it would be you, the friendly
yeah.
neighborhood geek.
Yeah, and I remember Deanna, there's this flaw in PowerPoint, and I don't usually speak of Microsoft as having a flaw because they actually are usually on the ball with this, but this is one that has always been an issue. If you start your PowerPoint presentation before you turn the projector on, or you get your speakers hooked up or whatever, it doesn't always pick up things. And so we
Mm.
ran into a problem with the projector in the room, and we ran into a problem with the speaker in the room. And everybody says they have no idea how this all happened, but apparently I walked in, I pulled two cords, plugged everything back in, and restarted the PowerPoint, and everything was good.
You're the
So
PowerPoint whisperer.
yeah, so
That's great.
that solidified my role as tech guru. So anyway, we got Deanna up and running, and she delivered an amazing presentation
What are
on.
your performances like? Can you kind of give us
Yeah.
a quick
So for
walkthrough of like
me,
what you do?
you have to understand, first of all, I come from teaching middle years. I come from being an IT manager. And so,
So very dry sense of humor, I imagine.
and I'm Canadian.
Good, you're Canadian. Okay.
So yeah, sometimes the humor can be,
Self-deprecating,
yes.
dry. Yeah, uh-huh. I got
Yeah,
it. I
I
got your
mean,
flavor.
yeah, case in point, when I sent you my photograph, and I said this one didn't break the camera, right?
Right.
It's a good thing, because that could happen. But yeah,
I'm not even going to dignify that, Shawn. Continue.
if it doesn't happen because of the face, it'll happen because of the glare. Anyway, uh, the
It is actually quite shiny and spotless.
yeah,
I
well,
mean, kudos.
it's 30 above here, or in your freedom units about just about 85. So it's a little warm.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh
It's got a
but
natural glisten.
oh yeah. Uh the the show itself, I as little of me as possible. I'm kind of like, and that's kind of the way that it should
Do you
be.
work like as a team then, more so than solo?
No, well, I have a person that I actually toured with in my shows, who's a magician who's actually performing at the Yorkton exhibition here this week. So, but yeah, like so our shows were, I would do my show and then he would do his show,
Oh,
uh,
okay, not together.
but
Okay,
not together at the same
gotcha.
time. It was as little me as possible in the sense that I don't need to be the star of the show, just like I
I like
don't.
that though. Make the audience the star.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and that's
and
why they come. I think to a hypnosis show as opposed to like any other show. They want to
yeah.
be the star of the show. Yeah.
Well, some of them do. There's a
Well, the
lot
ones
of
that end up
this.
going up on stage,
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of this, the Canadian
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
I guess the elbow's up, but there's this elbow, I call it elbowitis. And I say if you have elbowitis and you're elbowing the person next to you to go up, which, granted, there's a few of them, I said, that person has the right to bring you up too. It saves a lot of rib injuries. It's really what it's about. So,
That's
you
great.
know,
But
and
you know that the person who's doing the elbowing probably really wants to be up there. That's why they're
exactly,
doing that. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So I'm glad that you call them out on it and give them permission to do
Yeah.
that.
And,
Yeah.
and so typically, all sound equipment and malfunctions and whatnot that I've had in a couple of shows aside, shows have gone really, really well. Apparently, I had my oldest son used to date a girl a couple of years ago, and I didn't even recognize her. She changed her hair color and a bunch of other things, but um, she said, "Yeah, well, Megan was up there," and it's like, "Oh, who's you're
On
Megan?"
stage,
Yeah,
really?
was a volunteer. So Megan, if you're out there, we'll just keep calling you Cooper. Um, that's the name she chose when she figured out her own. And
Oh, that's great.
yeah, in the second show, a little bit later on, I had well, the Saskatchewan Volunteer Firefighter Association. Now, first of all, you have guys that are in high stress jobs.
They need to
Uh,
laugh. They need to
they
blow off
need a
some steam
laugh.
and laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so different kind of an approach. Actually wound up with, I don't know, 9 or 10 volunteers that stayed on the stage. And um, yeah, it was wild. And they afterwards, I pulled a few of them aside to get some, reactions and whatnot, and kind of
hmm
promotional footage
Right,
and
right.
whatnot. One of the guys said that that's the most rest I've had in 10 years. I'm
Wow.
thinking to myself in the back of my mind, yeah, like you're
Well,
wound up tighter than a top, and you're a volunteer firefighter, and
yeah.
it
And you get
explains.
wildfires in your neck of the woods, so that would make
Oh
sense
yeah,
that they'd be pretty, yeah.
yeah, and
So give us a trick, a tip. Like what's a like how do you know who to choose? How do you know who to send back? What's your favorite induction?
the best way to start getting people thinking about hypnosis is actually, and we can do this right now, actually. Everybody makes the okay sign. Okay. And now you look through the okay, look through the O directly at me. Don't look anywhere else, but look directly at me.
Okay.
Okay. Take a deep breath in and put it on your chin.
That's not your chin.
Now, here's the trick. Because when you have a crowd of people and you do it really quick,
They'll
it,
all do that.
they're either following you visually
Uh-huh.
or they're listening to you.
Okay. Okay.
Either way, I've got you. And then I start
So
the show.
so is there one that's preferable over the other? Like if they do this, what does
No,
that mean? That
well,
they're visual?
technically, if you're following along and doing exactly,
Then they're watching you.
you're a little more preferable because
Okay.
you're likely a little more suggestible.
Right, right. That's what I was
But
thinking.
if
Yeah.
you're an auditory person, that that works just as well.
And if somebody
Uh,
does this, you'll be like, no, that's not the person for
Well,
me.
one of the ladies that I had up, and this
That's
was
the
during the
rebel.
firefighter one, of course, forgetting the number two, amongst other things. And I think the last time I had her actually count her fingers, that we were into like 40,000 and something. Like she
Oh
just
my
totally
gosh.
lost all the numbers.
That's fantastic. I love that.
So she was definitely gone. Um,
So what did you start with stage hypnosis or did you start with hypnotherapy? Like how
I
did we end
started
up
actually
here?
back in 2012. Mayan calendar days, end of the world stuff,
Right, right. Yep. I remember all that.
uh,
First
you
we
know,
had Y2K, then we had the Mayan calendar 2012 gateway portal to Armageddon. Yeah.
yeah, so you just kind of notice people's stress levels were going up and up and up and up, and it just never seemed like it was coming back down. So I said, I have a solution for this, and how I got started in it, of course, was the Sci-Fi Channel. You can blame the Sci-Fi Channel. Back in the day when it was actually real sci-fi, and just starting out on the great big old satellite dish that we had. I lived out of town, so it was either watch the Sci-Fi Channel and that looks pretty cool, that looks pretty cool, but every so often they would actually have a show that kind of based in reality. That looks
Mhm.
pretty cool. And then getting to university, I spent more time in the psychology section of the library than I did in the education, which probably didn't help my education teaching all that much, but um,
But it helped you later with hypnosis.
oh yeah, and it was
I
actually
actually switched majors to go into psychology. I
yeah,
started off with
I well, it was
marketing
a
and
it was
I
a toss
was
up.
like, yeah.
It was a toss up as to whether or not I was going to go down this path or another path, and the education went out only because there was a bit of a paycheck and I needed to pay off student loans. So um,
Yeah, and it is a guaranteed job, whereas psychology, yeah, there's a lot of people waiting tables with degrees in psychology,
yep, and it's been a
working
guaranteed
in
job for
kitchens.
almost 30 years now. So which means that at some point I'll be making the leap into full-time hypnosis practice and shows and so on and so forth. So,
Well, that's exciting. That's
yeah,
good.
can you do both? Yeah, it doesn't, being a full-time person with a full-time job doesn't always leave enough time to do um, the fun hypnosis stuff and
Oh,
helping
can you do
people.
both
But
teaching and
yeah,
hypnosis? But
yeah,
as far as hypnosis goes, you do both sides as far as performance and also therapeutic.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had a few clients that what's the word I want to
Hi,
use?
Claudia. We have somebody else that just joined us.
There we go. Also another hypnosis hero.
Yep. Claudia and the bunny talking. Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Uh,
So yeah.
yeah, I think client wise, and again, you know a little bit about my personality. What I'm looking for in a client when I take them on and go through intake with them, I'm listening for two things. One, what are they saying? And two, how are they saying it?
Mhm.
Because that's the language that we need to either reframe. Well, it's the language we do need to reframe, but it's the place where we start, right? And in order to do that, you really need to listen to what they're saying and how they're saying it. And that again, I picked up from Bob more than anybody else because he is so ultra aware of what people are saying and he'll key in on a particular word and then we'll go back and ask him later, Bob, why did you do that? Well, this was the word and this was the context and we wanted to know
Mm,
more, right? So, and you know, again, being the teacher, asking open-ended questions. If you keep asking yes and no questions, you're only going to get a
yeah.
very tiny portion of the picture. So, asking the open-ended question, letting them explain, getting you the context, you know, of their situation, so that when you dive in, there's not not nearly as many surprises as you know you would typically have if you just dove in just because.
Yeah. So it sounds like you do a
So
pretty thorough, like sort of intake or
yeah,
pre-session talk. What do you think surprises your clients the most when they work with you?
a couple things. The fact that they can still hear me, but I heard you the whole time. Yeah, because if you didn't, you'd be asleep.
Right.
You know, the that
Yeah,
that
there
was
is that and we have
it's
to
shocking.
blame
Like,
TV and movies and stuff for that, giving the impression that you're completely
oh,
unconscious and unaware the whole
don't
time.
get me
So
started on the media. Like
yeah. I
it
actually am thankful for it though, because even when it's negative, like when, a movie comes out where the hypnotist is the bad guy, calls to me go up.
yeah.
I
It
still get, there's still more interest being generated because it's kind of like they're going, well, if it can be used for bad, it can also be used for good. If it's effective this way, it could also be effective this way,
yeah. Yeah, and the realization has to be there that they're using it as a plot device. They're driving their
Hmm.
plot forward. So, is it going to be as fast as it is in a TV show? No, because TV has 60 minutes to, well, not even 60 minutes. What is it? I think 42 minutes now is the average length of a show. Now,
Factoring in commercials. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so, I mean, they've got 2 minutes to drive the plot
And all
forward.
they have to
So,
do really is look around at the population of hypnotists to discover that no, we can't just talk you into anything. We can't
well,
convince you to go be a cat burglar for us or to go rob a bank or,
just transfer the money. That's all we need. Just
right. There
transfer
you
all the
go.
money. Um, yeah. Oftentimes when I'm out there
I
and
mean, there are
especially on
like
TikTok,
unscrupulous
right?
hypnotists out there, right?
Yeah.
There are. We know there are. But even they can't get somebody to hand over all their money,
No.
except for the ones that decide to do it as evangelical preachers. They seem to have kind of figured that out. So, but they do use hypnosis. They use NLP
Yeah.
specifically. You
No,
can
yeah.
hear it. But
There are some pretty startling parallels there.
yep, there are.
Um,
So that's what surprises clients the most is that they
well,
could hear you the
yeah,
whole time.
that and sometimes the other big surprise is how effective it is and how quickly it can be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly the people who are changing a habit uh, seems to be one that goes fairly quickly. I
Hmm.
had one lady, of course, up here in Canada we have Tim Hortons that would be like your Dunkin' Donuts, I guess.
Oh, okay.
You drive in, you can get all kinds of stuff, but donuts and coffee are basically what you get from Tim Hortons, and I wouldn't even call it coffee anymore. But anyway, that's a different story. Um, I had a lady that drove an hour, met with me, and then went to go get her double double, which is usually two cream and two sugar. And the meeting that we had, it was a 20-minute session. She was out like a light in like 45 seconds. And did a little bit of a deepener and went into the session, which was to control sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And
And you cut down a
what's
fair
really great
amount
for
of
that?
those.
Well, it's the control room. Let's get a dial. Let's go from 0 to 10. You want to do a little bit, do a little bit. You want to do none, crank it all the way down to 0. And so when she left the office, I already knew she had cranked it down to 0. 20
Mm-hmm,
minutes
mm-hmm.
later, session's over. Everything's great. She goes and I get this text message about an hour later. What the hell did you do to me?
I love those.
Like, what do you mean? What did I do to you? She said, I went to Tim Hortons to get my double double and I only ordered a double.
She halved her double double. That's great.
So, and it's like, well, yeah, that's you got your coffee with two milk and no sugar. Yeah. Well, why? I said, because that's what you asked for.
And you didn't use uh the type of hypnosis that just makes them like be disgusted by sugar. You were just using the control room and turning
I
down the
yeah,
cravings.
I find that actually the control room works really well in a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah.
Like you don't want that habit anymore. Okay, we'll crank it down to 0.
Yep.
Um, you know,
Do you ever
it
put a stopgap on it? Sometimes I'll do that, like I'll so that it can still have a little wiggle room, but it can't go past like 3. I'll be
uh
like, let's put a little
yeah,
stopgap
I
there.
usually let them, well, here's when it didn't work. I had a client who is also a colleague of mine in the school division. Um, she had some real health issues with gluten. And so we did the control room there and cranked it down to 0. That was fine. Kept tabs on her for the couple weeks, and then it was our February break, which would, kind of translate into your spring break. We just do it in
Mm-hmm.
February because nobody wants to be here in the winter. Um, I don't know
Understand?
why.
The Great White North.
While you were in Montana, you're not that far. You're not that far south. You're south. Actually, you're south
I called
of
it the
Western
American
Saskatchewan.
tundra.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's you got your fair share of snow and 40
Not
below.
anymore, baby. Not anymore.
Well,
We're
if you
living in
get
the
snow and 40
subtropics
below where
now.
you are now, that's a problem.
Yeah, it's about as hot here today as it is there, actually. It's
Yeah.
probably a lot more humid though.
Oh
But
yes,
anyway,
definitely.
I digress.
It's a dry
Continue with the
heat here.
story. Yeah.
So anyway, she went on holidays to Mexico and came back. And the first day that I saw her, she had this look in her eye and she grabbed me and she says, "You got to help me." I said, "What happened?" She says, "I turned the dial up and I couldn't turn it back down again."
Oh, wow. She had hypnotized herself to believe that only you could do that.
Yeah, I said, "Well,
So
it's
you
okay.
helped
We
her,
can fix
right?
that." And
Yeah.
so, not a problem. We
I
got
consider that kind of hypnosis like permission slips. Like the person just needs somebody to say, hey, you can do this. And then they're like, okay, now I can do it. Like you
yeah,
just have to hand the power back to them, you know?
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what we did. And since then, she's actually run marathons
Wow.
and done a whole bunch of
That's
things
incredible.
that she never ever would have considered before that. So,
Okay, last question because we're wrapping up. But have you ever had a session that impacted you as much or maybe even more as your client?
yeah, I think the one thing that we can all agree on is at the end of a session that we run where it's successful, our clients usually have a completely different look to them.
Mm-hmm.
The stress is off, the weight of the world is off. They can smile, an actual genuine smile. And I had one young lady that I worked with, and this was over a number of sessions. And what happened was during COVID, during the lockdowns, she had a couple of babies, got into drinking, got in, was, in depression, smoking, just,
It is a depressant after all.
generally not in a good state. And so we took each one of those as a separate thing. So the first little bit, just dealing with those habits and starting to
Mm-hmm.
make those changes. And then as things progressed, she added a few more sessions so that we could start looking at where does she want to be in the future. And so I said, well, let's take a look at, you know, let's take a look at this summer because I think it was like January, February when we were working. So let's take a look at this summer. What do you want this summer to look like? And she painted this picture of her enjoying her family. They were at a beach. She knew exactly what her bathing suit was going to be, how much weight she needed to lose to get there. Like she just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And I said, okay, now that's where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to float up and you're going to float back to now. But I want you to just watch the path and watch those things
Oh,
that would trip you
yeah.
up. Watch those things that would be blocks and know that you can either kick them out of the way. And notice from this height also, they're not as big as they might seem. And just wound her all the way back to the present. And I said, no, no, let's just do this again. So we zip back to the future, zip back to the present. And
Mm,
when I brought her out of that session, the smile on her face and the relief, and it just poured through the screen.
that's beautiful. I love
And
that.
it's like, yeah, okay, you got it. I'll never hear from
You
you
just
again, but
totally
you got it.
reminded me of a session that didn't have an ending quite like that. It could have gone much, much worse than it did. But I had a woman I was seeing for a spider phobia in Montana. And while she was in my office, this was not on Zoom, it was in my office. While she was in a trance, there was in fact a spider that was crawling on the wall on the other side of the room, but it was big enough that I could see it. And I was like, that's going to be the first thing that she sees when she opens her eyes. Oh shit. And I was just like hoping, like, I was like, come on, move along, little spider. Like, I'm like trying to like before she comes out of it. She came out of it and it was still there. And I was like, okay, maybe if it's just really still, she won't notice it, you know? And she had to put her glasses back on because she was just coming out of trance and stuff. She noticed it. When she noticed it, her immediate response was, oh, like just like that. She was like, she started to have the habit of the fear. And then she was like, oh, and it was like her brain just went like, you don't have to do that anymore. And I just watched. I was like, what just happened? And she said, I think there's a spider on your wall. Oh, is there? I didn't notice. That was really great the way that you responded though, like fantastic. And I used that moment to just really ramp up the anchor that she had this, but that could have gone in the totally wrong direction. I had no idea what was going to happen. And the office was big enough, the one in Montana, that I couldn't just like easily, go swipe it away without her knowing that I got up and walked to the opposite side of the room, like 13 feet away. So anyway, yeah. But when you were telling that story, I was like, I wonder what's going to happen. I hope that it's better than what happened with the woman with the spider, but it ended up being good. But yeah, like had I responded to her in any other way, like I'm glad I saw it coming. Because it's kind of like, when you have a kid that you're just, they're just learning to walk and they fall. If you have a negative reaction to that fall, that's going to impact their belief in whether or not they can get up and do it again easily, or whether they should stay on the ground and cry. So I saw it coming as a possibility. Anyway, thanks so much for your time, Shawn, and for sharing everything. Do we have any questions from Lynn, Nix, Lou, or Claudia? Anybody want to have any burning questions about the Performing Hypnosis Summit or the Hypno Heroes podcast or
Great
anything?
chat. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Thanks for showing up. It was
Yeah,
nice.
it was
It's a
it was
small one. These summer ones sometimes do that, like
I know. Well,
summers and holidays.
I just finished a client was talking to her mum, so I just and I saw you pop up and I went, ooh.
Oh,
and I
thank you so much.
and Shawn, thank you. You're such a champion of other people. I really love it. So you both are. So it's
So are
cool.
you. And thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, I
Once
know,
upon a
Shawn. You'll
time.
have to come on my StreamYard.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I love it. Anyway, somebody might have a question. So
Anybody have any questions? Other than me, Shawn, when are we going to get together and do the live TikTok? Let's do it.
Well,
I know I chickened out last time. I'm ready though. I'm ready this time. You might have to
you know
hypnotize me
what?
first.
Anytime Claudia's been on a couple times, I just happened to be there, and oh, there's Claudia, and I was like,
And then you just bring her up so that she's
Yep.
with. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do then.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I'm obviously not afraid of being on camera, but there's something about it being available to the masses all at once. People that I can't see and interact with.
The line of questions that you get typically on a TikTok live will be the ones, you know, the low level ones, like, you know, can you make me, can you make
Bark
me?
like a dog.
Yeah. And I, to those, you know, or can you hypnotize me? And my question back, you know, my answer back to that is always, how do you know you're not hypnotized already? And that works really well on students, you know, once they find out, oh, wait a minute, he's a hypnotist. Hey, can you? And it's like, well, how do you know you're not already? And the look
I
on
would
their face
venture
is
to
like,
say that
what
every
the
single
hell?
person on the planet over the age of 2 is
Yeah.
walking around in a state of trance.
Yeah,
To some degree.
exactly.
If you've ever hated on your body, you're hypnotized. You've
Yep.
been hypnotized to hate something that you actually started off loving, you know?
Or if you're telling you know, yourself good things and daydreaming.
Right. That's the choice. That's the choice kind of hypnosis. That's the kind where like you actually intentionally do something good with this ability that your brain naturally has. Yes.
Yeah. It's quite interesting to notice which one is which, and that you have a choice that you can go down that direction or that direction.
Always.
I'll share this with you. This is a funny one then. So when I have any really awful sort of like scenarios, you know, so like I'm dead, I'm buried, I'm at my own funeral, blah blah blah, or something's happened like that with one of my kids, or da 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 da, and then I go to, oh well, now I've had that thought, it won't happen. So I go there, but I never go there when I have my really good thoughts and my good movies and all my everything that's going wonderful. I always go, yeah, it's just going to happen.
I like that. I like that.
So
yeah.
I just thought I'd throw that one out there.
Thank you. That's really helpful. That is, especially for people that have intrusive thoughts that battle them. You don't have to battle it. You can just be like, well, now that I've thought it, I don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. I like that.
So and I feel my feelings with it, you know, because otherwise we're suppressing them.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, if I'm at
I'm a fan of that. I didn't used to be. I spent a lot of decades doing everything I could to numb and distract and avoid feeling anything, because it was like this pool that I thought I would drown in and never, you know, reemerge. But in the past 10 years, I've gotten much better at it. And now I teach others how to.
Yes, that's
right. My hair's getting bigger and bigger and bigger because it's getting more and more humid. I started off, it was actually like yours almost, Claudia. Now, I don't know if you could tell, but I have a halo of frizz. I need to go put my hair up, and I have other client or discovery call.
All right.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was fantastic seeing everyone. Thank you, Claudia. Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, Nick.
Bye, everybody.
And we'll
and Lou says she's looking forward to going down the rabbit hole, and Nick says thank you. Okay.
Oh,
hi, Shawn.
Bye. 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 That's funny.